We continue now our coverage of the breaking news coming to us out of Havana, Cuba this morning. Fidel Castro, the former president, dead at the age of 90. At this hour, we have new details of his funeral plans. And here they are. Cuba's government says his remains will be interned in the eastern city of Santiago. Of course, that city key, really, to his early life and the revolution. The state media says Cubans throughout the country will be invited to pay homage to Castro Monday and Tuesday. There'll be a mass gathering in Havana's Plaza of the Revolution. That's where Castro often addressed huge crowds right there you see in his country. His ashes will then make a cross-country tour starting Wednesday from Havana to Santiago, retracing in reverse the route Castro took when the revolution triumphed in 1959. He's to be interned in a Santiago cemetery on December 4th, and his remains, he will be cremated later on today. For more on our continuing coverage of this breaking news now, we want to go ahead and toss to News Channel 8's morning anchor, Jean Ramirez. Help me with the pronunciation here, Jean. You're in Little Havana, though, in Cuba this morning. I'm sorry, in Miami.
Correct. Little Havana in Miami, the heart of Miami's Cuban community for many years, and specifically in front of the Versailles, is how it's pronounced here, but if you're pronouncing it in French, it would be Versailles. You may pronounce it both ways, but it is a restaurant that for decades now, for more than 40 years, has been where the Cuban community in Miami gathers for their morning coffee and a whole lot of political talk. And every time there's news out of Cuba, this is where the Cuban community comes. And you can see the crowd still out here this morning, thinning out a little bit from what we saw earlier in the morning and overnight. But still, these are many people who have been here since the news broke, at least here, a little after midnight. And I've been talking to some of the folks out here. I want to bring in this gentleman. His name is Richard Sixto. He is Cuban-American. He was born here in South Florida. His parents were born in Cuba. Fidel Castro hasn't been in power since 2008. His brother has been in power in Cuba. So why is this death still important? Why is it still relevant?
Well, it's important because Fidel Castro was the one that started the revolution. He's the one that came down from the mountains, took over, and rode a tank out in Havana, and when the Bay of Pigs, he's the one that came out and said, oh, we defeated the Americans. When the Americans really, they didn't come with the air force. So he's really like, he's really the heart of the regime. Even though Raul Castro was there and he's in power, there's no voting in Cuba, of course. They just switched from, power to power. It's hope. It's something. It's still kind of celebration because he's the one that started it all.
Have you had a chance to speak to your parents, and what are they telling you? Because they lived the Castro regime.
Yeah, my parents actually woke me up at 1:30 in the morning, telling me, Fidel Castro passed away. My dad was swimming in the Versailles here on 8th Street in Little Havana, and I came over here and I met my dad, his brothers. They were all here, and we were in a celebration, happy. It's been a lot of years. At home there's bottles that say open when Fidel dies.
You'll be opening those later today.
Yeah, we'll open them up later today. But it's the words. There's no words to describe what we feel. We feel happy. We feel emotional. For my grandparents that have passed away on both sides of my parents, that they're here no longer. They never went back to Cuba. It's an emotional feeling.
A family moment we'll never forget. Richard, thank you so much. Again, another live look here at the scene in Little Havana. Some people just waking up to the news. This will get much busier later this morning. Back to you.
Perez reporting to us live from Miami. Gene, thank you so much. All right. Steve Andrews now joining us from the La Teresita restaurant in Tampa as the sun comes up with reaction from local Cuban Americans. And Steve, what do you have coming out from there this morning? Is anyone up yet? Has anyone heard the news yet?
I'm up. I've heard the news. Actually, people are beginning to trickle in here, Paul. Tampa Bay and the island of Cuba have deep and historic ties. Just take a look at the cigar factories around town. Now, here at La Teresita, I'm just down the street from an old Cuban cemetery called Martí Colón. Now, some customers are beginning to trickle in for their café con leche, as I mentioned. Philip Falcon's grandparents are from Cuba. He told me his grandfather was a Castro supporter in the beginning. Philip was unaware of Castro's death until I shared it with him.
It should be better for the country and for us and for, maybe we get a better relationship going. The people won't be so scared down there. Because I'm going down there in February, that St. Pete Regatta they're having.
Yeah.
My Cuban-born friend, who got left He got kicked out when he was a kid, so.
Now, according to Mr. Falcon, his friend, who is his age, had to ask his mother's permission to return to the island. So despite the recent thaw in relations, Paul, between the two countries, there is still a lot of ill will toward Fidel Castro and his iron fist rule in that tiny island nation.
Major developments happening this morning. Steve Andrews taking the pulse of the Cuban-American community in Tampa. Steve, thank you so much.